This is a Founding Media podcast.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Leveraging Life. Courtney, it's great to see you.
Good to see you as well. I need this morning. It's going to be interesting.
So this is a show where we share the stories of people that are taking what life throws at them and they're using it all for their own good and for the benefit of others. And so today we're going to be looking at a very interesting issue, and it's this topic of self-love. Actually loving yourself and maybe the misconceptions that are there, and what does it look like to actually develop a loving relationship with yourself.
Yes, because I've been told, and I think many people are like me, that to focus any energy on yourself is selfish, not self-love. So I'm very interested in, number one, dispelling that myth, and two, talking about how I can do more self-love for myself, because I'm still in that development stage of my life, which is interesting.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What has been the experience that you've had with, that self-love is selfish, and how is that unfolded in your own life?
Well, I think a lot of it came when I became a mother. So everything, all my focus, all my attention, everything was about my kids. And if I spent any time on myself, it was always short. It was always riddled with guilt. Like, what are they doing? What do I need to do for them before I can go and take care of myself? And then just learning that self-love is not just going and getting a manicure or pedicure. It's actually taking time to focus yourself, to calm yourself, to get the help that you need when you're dealing with some issues, that you face, and they show up in your body. So it's been interesting learning how to do that, especially with my background.
So one of the things that comes up for me when I think of self-love is in my upbringing, a lot of messages are, we absorb them, we catch them, even if nobody specifically says, think this way.
Right.
What gets modeled for us, becomes the way that we think. And then in addition to that, when it comes to something like this, a lot of my early experiences, I was actually taught, put others ahead of yourself. Think of others as better than yourself.
Yes.
And that was a message that I heard on a regular basis. And yes, it kind of, everything came together to create this sense that thinking well of myself and actually caring for myself was selfish.
Yes. And it's when I had this long discussion with my husband, the 3 o'clock, discussions you're not supposed to have. You're supposed to be asleep. I was asking him, I was like, what do you think about self-care? And what do you think the difference between self-care and selfish is? Interestingly enough, he doesn't think being selfish is bad. And we had a long, heated debate about it. And I was like, selfish is so wrong. He's like, no, it's not. And I was like, well, what do you call it? What's your definition? So I think maybe coming up with the definitions, and is it a gender difference? Like the way that men look at self-care is different than the way that women look at self-care?
So you're actually bringing up something that I've seen quite often, is that more like women struggle with this idea of loving themselves. Men tend not to. And I'm not saying that across the board, but like that they don't see caring for themselves as a negative, selfish, experience. And so here's a couple of distinctions that I've seen with this, is that selfishness is really the absence of love.
Okay. You have to break that one down for me, Becky, because that's
so here's the thing. If I'm not loving myself, I become obsessed with getting it from everyone else.
Oh, okay. So you're trying to fill that hole that you...
Exactly. So I want you. It's like really this idea of what gets expressed as selfishness is really because there's an absence of self-love.
That's interesting.
So it's like I can't get enough, because if I'm not loving myself,
Yes.
then I want you to do it, and I want her to do it, and I want him to do it. And it's like, I want everyone else in my life.
And it comes across as selfish or self-centered. Okay.
Exactly, because I'm literally, I've got this bottomless pit,
Oh,
right?
wow.
That it's just, and it's never enough, and it's never enough. And I'm really consumed about getting it, but it's really subtle. It's really sneaky. Because here I am, taking care of my kids or taking care of everyone else. And yet underneath it all, it's like, when am I going to get mine? When am I going to get mine?
Wow.
Right?
That's mind blowing because I never
Right?
thought about it that way. It's this hole that you're trying to fill with other people when it really should be you filling it yourself.
So when I do the work of giving myself, I call it like just some fundamental emotional, physical, spiritual care, right? I get first in line for that. Something very interesting happens. I actually become more available to the people in my life. I become more giving. I've always got more to give because my fundamental need for love or desire for love
is being fulfilled.
It's already taken care of.
Yeah, that's kind of the concept of giving from a full cup as opposed to giving from an empty cup. It's like if your cup is overflowing, then the overflow is for everybody else, and you're not giving from a place of weakness or lack. That makes sense.
Well, yeah, and if you've been on an airplane, before,
a couple of times,
and what is the thing that every single
oh my gosh
in-flight or pre-flight instruction says regarding the oxygen mask?
That you put it on you first, and then you put it on your children or your dependents or whoever's around you. But you have to do you first.
Right. And why do you have to do you first?
Because if you pass out trying to take care of everybody else, they need you to be available. So put it on you first so that you can breathe, so that you can help other people. That makes sense.
So the way I look at it is that self-love is actually one of the most selfless acts that you can do for the people in your life.
Man, what a freeing thing to say. You know what I mean? Like, I know that if I can love myself and take care of myself, I can do more for other people. I actually heard that the oxygen mask analogy drawn when I saw Susie Orman, and she was talking about finances and how you should handle your finances. You've got to fill your cup first before you fill everybody else, because everybody else are pulling you down with them because you're not capable and you're not at full capacity. So I guess that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. I like that, the self-love component. Why do you think people miss that?
Well, again, I think that there is that misconception that it's selfish. And if you're living your life, based on, like your parents are teaching you to share, right? Sure. So, think of others as better than yourself. All of these things, they add up so that they can't see the benefit of loving themselves. Yeah. Here's also another aspect to this is that the way you treat yourself is a template for how you experience everybody else.
Yeah, I've experienced that.
So if you are not loving yourself, it actually diminishes your capacity to receive love from other people. Okay. They might be giving it to you, but it won't land.
Yeah. Yeah. It won't take hold the way it's supposed to.
It won't take hold. Exactly. Yeah. It'll just keep sliding off, because if I am in the way that not loving myself can show up in different ways. So it can show up like maybe I just ignore my own needs and desires and things like that. Yeah. It can also show up where I'm actually critical and harsh and judgmental. Sure. Where my thoughts and my self-talk is actually very damaging, and destructive. So if that's what's going on, and I always feel bad about myself, then I have someone in my life that maybe they're loving and kind. You know what? It might feel good for a little bit, but I will find a way to diminish and to sabotage. And to keep all of that out and to keep all of that at a distance.
So what if you've raised your entire life to be taught this way? It's hard. I mean, I'm in my 40s and it's hard to go ahead and change that when it's so ingrained in who you are. And by the time you're 40 or my age, you probably have had children, maybe one or two relationships where you've actually ingrained that in other people. So how do you, number one, identify it's time for me to develop this practice for myself? And then how do you change the imprint you've made on everybody else? I guess it would be through example, but how do you identify it, and how can you change it later on once you realize this is something you need?
So how does a person identify that they're not loving themselves?
Right. They're not loving themselves properly because if your mom is like this, your grandmother was like this, or your dad was like this, like you've been seeing it your entire life, and you just it's diametrically opposed to everything you've heard, you've seen, and you've been exposed to. How do you identify that there's something wrong?
Yeah, I think it comes down to being open, like being open to a conversation like this.
Sure.
Right. And actually having ears to listen that, oh, there's another way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what might that be like? I think sometimes really what it takes for someone to wake up is that you just, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you hit that point where this isn't working.
Yeah.
It's just not working. And so especially in light of, what our show is all about, this, how do we leverage life?
Yeah.
It's like you hit this point where what I'm doing in life isn't working. What else is there? And I think this is actually really important. A lot of people rely on negative self-talk like a tool.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is my motivation. If I'm not hard on myself, if I'm not beating myself up on a regular basis, I'm not going to succeed. I'm not going to, fill in the blank, whatever the fear is.
Oh, that's a whole other podcast right there.
And I would just say, how do you know?
Yeah.
You've never tried it.
Yeah.
All you've known is beating yourself up and being hard and critical with yourself. Would you be open to trying this out and at least seeing what happens?
I think that's great. I mean, because there's so many people especially that I work with, they don't know what self-love is. And if you've ever dealt with any sort of abuse or any sort of violence, it's like, I'm almost deserving of this because it was a normal that I saw in my life in the past, or I saw my mom going through it. So helping them to identify that it's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to feel wrong, but it's something that you need to do so you can develop new relationships, in the future.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Well, and so again, to make that connection with how I treat myself is the template for how I experience everyone else is this. If I'm treating myself really poorly, I'm actually going to align with other people that reinforce that.
Right.
And treat me poorly.
Right.
And I'm going to keep people that want to treat me really well at a distance.
Yes.
I'll find a way to not be close to them because it feels off.
Uncomfortable.
And most of this is happening unconsciously.
Yeah. It's
not like we are articulating to ourselves, oh, this person treats me really well. I need to get them out of my life.
Yeah.
No, but what happens is that when this is going on in terms of the unconscious programming, what feels familiar, what feels normal is maltreatment.
Yeah.
Then I will unconsciously find a way to sabotage that relationship or keep them out of my life. And I'll just call it fate. Well, it wasn't meant to be, or, I'll find some reason to explain it away.
Right.
And so to your question of, how do you identify this? It's really like if you have a pattern in your life that was either modeled for you or you experienced over and over again that left you feeling bad about who you are and what you deserve and what you're worth, right there, that's where you can start to take a look. How has this played out? How has this been on repeat in my relationships? And taking on that openness to, well, what if I just gave it a go?
Yeah. What if I tried this method and see if it would actually work? Because we talked about it last time, like the patterns in your life and being in an alignment. If it continues to happen, there has to be some introspection. It's like, okay, wait, what is this? Why does it keep showing up for me? I don't understand. Then you start to identify those patterns. I guess that's a good thing to definitely take some time out and look at yourself. As part of your self-care to make sure that you're, that's good.
And there was a question that was posed by, I believe it was Einstein, who said that fundamentally every human being has to answer the question of, do I live in a friendly or a hostile universe?
Okay. How would you answer that question?
Well, let me unpack it just a little bit. It's the question, is life for me or is life against me?
Yeah.
And if life is against me, well, then all of this, not loving myself and seeing myself in a negative light, all of that fits with that narrative.
Sure.
That life is against me. But if life is for me, well, then what would also fit with that is this appreciation for who I am and my place in the world, and that I belong here for no other reason that I'm here.
You need to repeat that quote because I think we should write it down and ask, is that the perspective I have? It's like, am I thinking everybody's against me or is the world actually wanting me to win in this one? Like, if people ask that question, answer that question honestly, then it is that defining moment where you decide how you're going to handle things. So now that they know that that's where they stand, what are some tools? What can they do to develop this self-love or this self-care behavior, this selfish behavior, as my husband would say.
So there's something at play before we start looking at any kind of tools or techniques or methods, which those are all helpful. But it's also my perception of myself comes down to, am I looking for love or am I love?
All right. Unpack that one because
if who I am in my essence is love, I don't have to go look for it.
That's true.
I don't have to get it.
Okay.
I don't have to take it. So, because oftentimes we talk about love like it's this commodity, like okay, here's a cup, right? Like I give it, I can take it, right? And oftentimes, so that's how we relate to love. Like and I'm not saying... It's
almost tangible. It's almost something you give and take.
Right. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm saying that is a very limited expression of love. That what if love is so much more than that it's not just something that can be given and received, but that it's actually who you are.
It's a beautiful thought. I mean, I just feel it's very elevated. So it's like, how can I take someone who's down in the dumps to actually understand that concept when they don't know what that is? How do we get them there? Because I want to be able to. I want to free people. I think this is freeing information. So how do I free someone who doesn't know what that looks like?
I would say this. You ask the question, what if? So rather than trying to convince someone or persuade them that that's who they are. What if you just stay in the question? What if who I am is love? Just try that on.
What if who I am is love? Okay, I'm gonna try that and see what happens because I think it's interesting. Yeah. I'm interested in seeing the variety of answers I get to that question. I'm gonna try it this week.
And I would say that's a great question to stay in. Meaning, you might ask that question, what if who I am is love? Yeah. And you might have things come up. Here's what's powerful about it. The answer doesn't even matter. Yeah. It's look at your life from this possibility. What if who I am is love? Like a ladder, okay? It's like you're actually elevating your perspective on your own life. That's what questions do. Yes. So it's looking at your life from this other position of what if who I am is love? What do I notice about my life then? What do I notice about my relationships, my work? What do I notice about how I treat myself? Sure. From there, the methods or techniques or the tools, like what has to happen next starts to unfold. Sure. And it probably makes more sense. You have to understand that before you can actually start using a tool to make it actually real in your life or make it a reality. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Then we'll stop at the what if I am love kind of, I guess,
question or for ourselves, because the question does reveal the truth. It makes you dig a little deeper. It's like, okay, I'm not love. Why am I not love? And how can I change that? I really want to get there because I'm always that solution-driven person. So what would you say? We're gonna finish up here.
Okay.
How would you lump in a really short soundbite what self-love is and why it's not a selfish act? I'm going to give you the Jeopardy music. Can I do that?
I heard I was given a statement one time by a mentor of mine. And he summed it up this way. So I think this is really fitting.
Okay.
He said, "Would you be willing to treat yourself at least as kind as your dearest love?"
Okay. That's a good way to gauge it.
So if you just treated yourself with the same level of kindness, love, care, respect, honor that you have for the people that are most dear to you, if you just treated yourself that way, what kind of difference would that make for you?
I think it would make a huge difference for me. I think it would make a huge difference for a lot of people. Yeah. If you're able to extend that kind of love, what if you just did it for yourself? How amazing would that be?
Yeah. And see what happens. Like, rather than this idea of, you can either have a relationship with the idea of self-love, or you can actually put it into practice and get a direct experience with self-love. I would say to anyone even listening today, don't believe me.
Try it.
Exactly. Yeah. Try it on and see what you notice about your life. Don't believe me. Don't believe Courtney. Try it on.
Don't believe me.
And
I'm still working on it.
Don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me because I don't want you to keep it up here.
Yeah.
I want you to try it on, put it into practice, get a direct experience with it.
I think that's a great way to wrap up. Thanks so much for being here with me and Becky today and Love Virginia Life, and we'll see you the next time.
Bye.
Bye.